It is the most important symbol, yes you are. I miss you, Steve. I miss you. Ooh, shiny object. Hello, interwebs. Now that I've got the... Can I throw the shield? I think I should throw the shield. No, I'm gonna go put it over there. Anyways, hello interwebs, and welcome to my review of the series premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier New World Order. Honestly, I am so excited to talk about this show because Captain America, Steve, is my favorite Marvel superhero. He's my big blue Boy Scout. I love him so much. And I'm honestly just kind of curious to see what the MCU is going to be doing with that sort of character idea going forward with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I've also been really kind of curious to see what they're going to do with this really in-depth look at a side character, or two side characters, I should say, from the MCU. Now, unlike my WandaVision review, I'm going to give a spoiler-free thoughts up front, and then we'll get into spoilers in just a moment. So, spoiler-free up front, I really, really like this episode. I feel like, unlike WandaVision, which was this show that came out as a big, bold statement about what these MCU TV shows could be, that they could be these, like, experimental, weird sort of things that are sort of different from what these sort of big blockbuster movies have to be for the Marvel universe, that these can kind of go experimental. This show is kind of set more within the MCU mold. It feels more alongside those sort of big blockbuster type movies, but I think has a much subtler statement about what these MCU shows can be, in that they can sort of still have that big blockbuster action, but feel much more smaller scale, much subtler, kind of give us this street level perspective of what it's like to live in an MCU where these big events happen, but still people have to pay their loans, they have to pay their bills. What is it like when you live in the world where the blip happens, and what sort of events are going to take place on the ground level? Now, obviously, there's going to be sort of big globe-trotting stuff throughout this episode that I still had a lot of fun with. It was still felt like the grandiose nature of the MCU, but it kind of brought it down to a smaller human level, not these sort of like big, huge events that always characterize the big movies. And I really liked it. It really felt like a cool, slow burn as we got to see things through the eyes of this sort of lesser-known MCU heroes, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I think where this episode really, really shone through, and what I hope they continue throughout the entire series, is these small human moments that really gave characterization to these two characters who really kind of were just in the background of most of the MCU before. And I think where this really shines is with Bucky. I'll talk about this more in my spoiler-filled section, but when it comes to Bucky, I always didn't really love him all that much. I know a lot of people really adore him, but I feel like most of that came from our love for Steve, who we fully felt as a character, and how much he loved Bucky, and sort of our like love of Bucky being transferred from our love for Steve. And I never really kind of got that or felt that as much. I really felt he was more like a MacGuffin type character within the MCU, that he was just sort of something that we were supposed to really care about, but I never really cared all that much about him. But here, I really start to feel that he is becoming a full fleshed out character, and I think he honestly has some of the most heartfelt scenes throughout this entire episode, including some really subtle ones that like came out of nowhere and gut punched me when I realized what was actually happening. So kudos to really making me fully feel for a character that I did not care about before. All of that is phenomenal. The other thing, too, I'll mention in my spoiler-free sections up front is I really loved the music throughout this episode. I have generally not been a fan of MCU music, if I can say words. I've generally found it kind of a little bit bland. It's like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But here, there's actually like tension being built with a lot of the music. There's actually some characterization being done with the music. I think of like during the action sequences, there's some cool tension being built there. And during the Louisiana sequences that take place during this episode, there was some cool like flavor within that I thought really shone through. I also want to call it the cinematography in this episode too. They actually were taking like a sort of a page out of the Handmaid's Tale book in one of these scenes that I thought was actually brilliant, where a character, as sort of like he lost power throughout the scene, he became lower and lower in the frame till it was like almost awkwardly framed. I'm talking about Bucky, and I'll talk about the specific scene in the spoiler section. And that's something that the Handmaid's Tale does really well, like sort of push women characters off to the sides of the frame. And I just noticed that here it was clearly maybe intentionally or unintentionally, I sort of evoked that for me. And I thought that was a really cool, creative cinematography choice. I can't say words. I thought that was a strong choice in a series that has not had particularly strong cinematography. Again, I'm thinking more of the movies. Not that it's bad, but it's always just sort of like, yeah, fine. It does the job. Here, there's a little bit more creative choices. I think that comes out of the slower pace throughout the episode. So overall, I thought this was a great statement about what this show is going to be. It's still going to have its sort of big, grandiose action, big sort of MCU moments, but take its time in getting to those bigger beats, sort of giving us more moments in between. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. So, with all that said, let's get into the spoilers. I'm going to talk some specifics about each scene. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, go watch it. Get yourself on that New World Order. That's going to send you down a bad algorithm hole that you don't want to go to on YouTube. Ignore that. Anyways, on to the spoilers with this episode. Also, quick little promotion before we get started. Over on my Patreon page, I am actually this weekend on Saturday going to be doing a full live watch-along for my patrons of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So if you want to see me watch Zack Snyder's Justice League the full 4 hours all the way through live and interact with me, have fun, I'm also going to be doing a drinking game, like drink every time that I get to see a shirtless dude's abs, which will probably have me dead already considering it's a Zack Snyder movie. But I'm going to be doing that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some fun together. So if you want to go over and join my Patreon, we can have some fun together watching Zack Snyder's Justice League. No worries if you don't want to join. It'll also be up if you're a patron and want to watch it later on and can't join live, but it should be a fun time. We'll have a lot of fun doing that. But beyond that, let's get into the review. So I'm going to give my breakdown of each individual scene, just sort of my quick thoughts. I'm not going to sort of give a play-by-play of the plot, but I am just going to give my thoughts on each sequence. The first thing we got is this big action sequence, kind of like a statement. It felt like a statement of the show saying like, yes, we are going to have your big MCU action in this series. Don't worry, you'll get that. And it also kind of plays a similar role to the opening action sequence of The Winter Soldier, showing where Falcon is within this moment in time, like Steve was in The Winter Soldier, showing that he's working for the government. He's doing different things, and it's not really anything that we care about. It's just sort of a big action sequence to have a big action sequence. And I thought it was a lot of fun. It also introduced us to Torres, who throughout this episode, I can already tell that Torres is going to be my adorable little like, oh, I just want to pinch your cheeks, you're so cute guy. He just has so many cute lines of like, oh, you're so innocent, like you're like a spy and you're going after terrorists and stuff, and yet you're so adorable. Oh, Torres, I know I'm going to love Torres already. He better not die. If he dies, I will riot. I'm already saying it right here. He's my character that I'll riot for in this show. Then we go to Tunisia, where we have this small little scene with Falcon and Torres. Again, I think Torres is adorable, asking about Steve. This scene and kind of the scene that came after it really felt like stage setters, sort of like showing us where we're at in the world, sort of mentioning like a few months after the blip, people sort of thinking that during the blip was better. I liked seeing that. I like this sort of idea that we learn about the Flag Smashers, a group that think life was better during the blip. And I like that sort of like political intrigue and building out of the world of the MCU post the blip. Like how has the world changed because of the blip? And I think that that's a cool idea, that there's this sort of group that sort of has an ideology based around the blip. Such a cool concept there. Really excited to see how they explore that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But then we go to Washington in one of the really coolest scenes, with Falcon giving up Steve's shield. Obviously, this is going to be the big symbol throughout the entire series. Falcon doesn't feel like he's owed the Captain America shield. Obviously, what happens at the end of the episode with the new Captain America, he's going to have it and go for it because he thinks he's earned it and deserves it. And eventually, I'm sure Falcon at the end of the series will earn the shield, or maybe he'll co-earn the shield with the Winter Soldier. So I can kind of already see the arc here, but it makes sense that he really doesn't feel like it, like he earned it. It kind of feels like a natural extension of sort of the anxiety he was feeling at the end of Endgame about taking the shield. So I kind of like the exploration of this. You can kind of see how this is going to be sort of an exploration of this character that you won't need to see the next time he pops up in an MCU movie, because it'll be like, oh yeah, he took up the Captain America mantle. That makes perfect sense if you sort of go from Endgame to this. But I like sort of seeing that sort of arc sort of explained a little bit more in depth in the series. So you can kind of see that this sort of is going to be like a nice epilogue or coda to that, but it's not going to be necessary for the movies. I kind of am expecting that with this show, that it's not going to be like a necessary must-watch for the movies, but we'll sort of see how it goes. But it was a nice little speech. We kind of get this idea that Steve is considered dead by the world, which has me very curious. I'm hoping, please please, please, please give me my Chris Evans cameo in the show. I want old man Captain America. I want it so bad. I will cry. I will cry. Captain America is my favorite. I just miss him so much. Sorry. I liked the museum set. The museum set was cool. And then I should also say Don Cheadle was in this. Rhodey himself. That was a really awesome cameo. It was nice to see him here. And I like that we're getting these sort of big level cameos, but like cameos of characters that are somewhat unexpected. And I thought that was nice. And I thought their conversation was very heartfelt about him feeling that he didn't really earn the shield and sort of talking a little bit more about the world building of what's going on in the world right now. I thought that was all excellent. So I'm going to continue on here with Falcon's story, and then we'll jump over to Bucky's to finish out this review. I liked going to see Falcon's home in Louisiana. Again, I love this sort of smaller street level view of the MCU that we're getting through this idea. I like that we meet his sister. I like that we see that they're having financial struggles trying to save this boat, and that they're sort of having arguments between themselves and sort of the like meeting people. This was sort of like something we got a snippet of in Endgame, where Steve was like doing those like sort of circle conversation groups. I'm blanking the therapy groups that he was doing. I forget what they're called. For some weird reason, the word's escaping me. But we got a little taste of that, and I kind of like seeing that again here, that we're sort of like meeting average people doing average things. And Falcon has his sister, who I think is really wonderfully played, and I like their dynamic where she kind of has a little bit of a chip on her shoulder for him sort of up and leaving their family during a hard time, and him going off to do his own thing, joining the military and all that stuff. But they still kind of have a love for each other. I think that's a good dynamic. It's a very subtle dynamic. Again, I like this sort of character through line through here of we're getting a little bit more subtle or nuanced relationships than we would get in the movies. So nice job there. I thought they both played it really well. I loved the cinematography during this Louisiana section, the music that played during it. I thought the loan sequence where they go in for the loan was hilarious, but again, realistic. It felt like a ground level thing that like, what are your finances as an Avenger? How much money do you make? I'm surprised he doesn't make like some level of a like stipend from the government or somebody, or there's not like an Avengers stipend that they sort of give him. Kind of surprised by that. I'm really curious about the financials of the Avengers now. I'm actually deeply fascinated by that. But I thought that this scene was kind of hilarious, but kind of showed that like there's only so much that he can do. Again, the ground level stuff was great, and I like the sister sort of coming back at him. My only question about this though is he's talking about goodwill. Why doesn't he like make a GoFundMe to help fund them buying or keeping the boat? Because I mean, like, I know I would chip in for a GoFundMe for an Avenger. Like, come on, I think we all would. But I kind of want to jump over to Bucky stuff, because I think the Bucky stuff, surprising me, was the strongest stuff of this episode. As I said, I really have never seen Bucky as a full character, and so this was kind of in an uphill battle to sort of flesh him out here. But I like that the movie or the show is starting from that exact place, that he wasn't a real character. They even mentioned during his therapy session that he'd been fighting for 90 years. He's kind of been off the game. He's not really a fully fledged person. You sort of get these hints of this trauma and pain and regret that he feels for all the things that he did. And I like this sort of setting up of he has these 3 rules that he has to follow. He can't hurt anybody, he can't do anything illegal, and then he does the like apology thing. I thought that was sort of a nice like smirky moment that he had there. Also, it was really cool in this sequence to see that Bucky was lying to his therapist and actually willing to do whatever it takes to make amends, to really make up for what he did wrong, even though it wasn't his fault, even though he was mind controlled. I think that really sets the stage for his character, that he is willing to go to extreme lengths and break the rules in order to make amends, because he really feels awful about what he did and really wants to make up for it. I think that that's such a cool starting point for this character within this show. Obviously, that's going to come back around in a very emotional moment later on down the line in the show, I'm sure, in a few episodes. I'm sure that'll be turned around in a very emotional gut punch, considering what happens later on. But I like that we get, again, the small human moments that show he's been out of touch, that he's sort of like not really fitting in with the world. I think that that's a really beautiful sort of way to use him. And I think Sebastian Stan played it really wonderfully and gave a lot of humor and warmth to this character that has been fairly cold and sort of distanced in my book, and I think playing that up really, really well. I think great job in this therapist sequence, and I thought there was a lot of like funny, like I said, small human moments where he's lying to her, just in a good back and forth. She's like wanting to write stuff down, the passive aggressiveness of that. All that's great. Like that's really good writing within this, like the small back and forth and sort of dynamics between these characters. One other quick little interesting note to mention is that one of the people on Bucky's list that he needs to make amends for is Zemo, the villain from Captain America Civil War, who we know is going to be appearing as a character in this series. We don't know if he's going to be a villain or a hero. So I'm actually very curious to see that Bucky has him on his list as people that he needs to make amends to. I'm wondering how that will play out throughout the rest of the season. Then we go and see him meet Yori at the sushi place. His friend Yori, who's this disgruntled like old guy who is sad about his son having died. I thought that was really nice, and I didn't make the connection that the sort of flashback sequence that we got earlier on, which was truly terrifying, by the way, and I really felt the horror of it, of him being the Winter Soldier and killing that young man. I didn't make the connection that Yori's son was the person that Bucky killed, and I thought that was truly fascinating that Bucky sort of has him on his list of people to make amends to. I thought that was really great, but it also made sense. I just sort of saw it as like, oh, they connected because of his age difference. Like, Bucky is kind of more closer to Yuri's age, really, than anyone else, so he probably would have connected with this guy, and so I like that they formed that friendship. But the reveal later on in the episode where he goes up to see him and sort of gives him, sort of like just does some nice things for him and reveals that he killed his son, the regret he feels for that, even though that wasn't his choice to do that sort of thing, I think is killing his innocent son. I think that was, it honestly moved me. I was very moved by that moment. It really just gut punched me. So again, phenomenal job having these small moments that really are understandable. You really care with them, but come out of nowhere and really humanize Bucky and even the other characters around him really well. The only thing about this sequence that I really didn't love, and it's not bad, but I just didn't absolutely adore it, was the date sequence. It kind of felt a little bit perfunctory to get some sort of exposition out of the way. I hope she comes back as a character. I'm sure she will in maybe the next few episodes, but it was sort of like, oh, she got the date really easier. He got the date very easy, and then their date was cute, but kind of a lot of bit exposition-y and sort of things. With that, it's not bad. I'm not like hating on it, but I just felt like it was fine. I did like the small human touches of him like touching the like rocking arm thing and them playing a drinking game with Battlefield. That's a lot of fun. I'm actually gonna do that next time I play Battleship, I should say. That would make that game so much more fun. Even though I actually kind of like that game, but it's such a fun way to sort of play that game. And I liked that small human touch there. But overall, the dating scene was like not bad, but it was fine in my book. Then we get two other sequences to quick touch upon because they sort of are tying into the larger plot of the series. I thought the sequence with the flag smashers, with Torres going in and putting on the mask, that was such a clever sequence that this sort of group is like using masks to sort of make people not be able to tell what's going on and escape. That's such a smart move, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this group develops. I'm very curious if they continue this sort of idea with them and this sort of like sort of chaos that they can create with that. Very sort of V for Vendetta, though, used to possibly more nefarious means. Actually, to be honest, their ideology, to me, didn't necessarily sound all that bad. I mean, we should be getting rid of borders, in my opinion. I know that's sort of a political statement, but in my opinion, I'm not 100% against that idea. So I'm kind of curious to see what the politics of this show is going to go in that respect. I don't think they're going to make some didactic, very overtly political statement, but it is a very political topic to talk about with borders, especially nowadays. So I think that that's going to be very interesting, and it's very interesting too within the context of the next sequence, which is there is a new Captain America, some Blandy McBlanderson kind of guy. I maybe he's a character that we've met before, but this sort of quick look that we got at his face at the end, I'm like, I don't think I recognize him. Made me think of like Guardians of the Galaxy, like, who? So I was, so I'm kind of curious to see where that's going to go. A nice little surprise, and it's got to be a punch in the gut to Falcon. He's like, oh yeah, I guess I should have kept the shield, or I guess I really didn't deserve it, and it's sort of like going to be that sort of imposter syndrome sort of thing going on for him, when this guy just swoops in and takes what he earns. Again, I think there's some really subtle commentary within that. We'll see where it goes, but I think they can really use that idea in such interesting ways of like, this person just comes and assumes that he's owed it or he deserves being Captain America, America when Falcon really earned it, but he has that imposter syndrome, which I think is kind of going to be an interesting exploration. And I'm also curious to see they were sort of really highlighted that this character is going to stand for American values. He's not a world hero, he's an American hero, which makes sense with Captain America, but Captain America always felt like that world hero, despite the fact that he was Captain America within the character. And sort of that's sort of the interesting sort of politics within that statement of him being a sort of hero for everyone, but still being couched in American iconography. And so I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this new version of Captain America, to sort of say, like, if he is going to be something like entitled jerk, if they're going to tie that to American values. I honestly think the MCU is not really known for like making bold political statements. In fact, it's sort of usually done like upholding the military is a cool thing sort of idea, and the strongman sort of guy. Not that it's sort of gotten like to Zack Snyder levels of that idea, but it is sort of in there. So this storyline in many ways has the potential to be one of the most political statements that the sort of MCU proper has made. I'm honestly very curious to see if they're going to follow through on some of those ideas, but sitting right here off of the opening episode, I'm sort of like, you've laid the groundwork to make some pretty bold statements about the world right now with this story, and I'm honestly kind of curious to see where they go with it. I'm not entirely sure I'm 100% confident they'll be able to pull it off, because these are sort of very broad-based sort of ideas in the MCU, and it's Disney as well, so I don't really know how targeted they're going to get with it, but there's some interesting potential. So I am very, very curious of that. I'm not supposedly thinking they're going to get super political, but I am very curious to see it on that. So that's everything that I had to say on this episode. Of course, I got into some political stuff and waxing philosophically. I'm obviously expecting too much from the MCU, but it was something that made me think about it, and I am honestly curious about. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the episode. What did you think of the premiere episode of Captain America, Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Sorry, I just missed Steve. I'd love to hear all your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more reviews of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Also, I have a Patreon page where you can support me. But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Patrons, it is time to assemble! Catherine Lambeth, Miranda Janelle, Ashley Allen, Bokikio, Eli Bergmas, Ashlyn Solstice, John Cool, Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Chamomile T, Randy Thompson, Wellington Marcus, Boyd Earl, and Marybeth Earl, Stephen Schuhart, Wayne Twitchell, Auntie Kate, 808, Rick Osborne, Dominic Noble, Ish the Mad, Buttoneer, John Steele, Meadow Whisperer, Gavin Robinson, Michael Beam, Munir Amlani, BBD, Jason Knott, Hannah F, Andrew K, Bree Beecher, Jasmine, Sky Skinner, Maeve, Skylar Gray, Flynn Nathan Steele, Tiffany Danger, Sean Piper, Geek Filter, Jane Packard, Wen Dizzle Bizzle. Why do I do this to myself? Sarah Bystem, James Karate, Jacob Tovar, W. Randy, Edie, Mari Neckar, Bush, Celestial Dawn, Din, Mark the Edge, Pissed and Twisted Garage, Lily, Polly Nina, Laura Demo, Lisa, Nikki, Gordon, Bloomfield, Andrew, Lamaro, Zone 1 Librarian, Jenny Mabel, Michael Hardy, and finally, Corey Honkanen and Vale. Done. Alright, not my best patron rap, but I figured it would still be fun for you to see all my failure on screen, immortalized in every video this month. Also, I know I mixed Captain America and Superwoman. Deal with it. But thank you, honestly, to all my patrons. I really appreciate all of you, and you really mean a lot to me. I would not be able to do this without you. Thank you so much for supporting me being an absolute dork and weirdo. I wish you all the best.